Hello everybody, my name is Kara. Today I am here with the Sims book tag. Now this tag was created by Haley from Haley in Bookland, and I was tagged by Rocky from Blonde with a Book. Question number 1 is the original Sims, best author debut. For this one, I'm going to go with Still Star-Crossed by Melinda Taub. Now you might recognize this title from the very, very short-lived TV series. It was fine, but the book is amazing. It is so much better, as is almost always the case. It's pretty much this story that happens after Romeo and Juliet are dead. So we follow Rosaline from the Capulet side of the family and Benvolio Montague. And basically there's this plot between their families that they're going to arrange the marriage of these two characters in order to force a lasting peace between their families. Because unfortunately what occurs at the end of the play, Romeo and Juliet, is not a lasting ceasefire. Now, needless to say, neither Benvolio nor Rosaline are excited about marrying the enemy, so we follow them as they try to unravel the mysteries surrounding the tragic deaths of Romeo and Juliet. Now, when I first started reading this book, I thought within the first few pages that, wow, this is one of the best, I think, retellings or story extensions that I've read. And by the time I had finished the second chapter, I was like, this is one of the best books I have ever read. I love this novel so much. Rosaline is one of my favorite characters of all time. And Benvolio is also a really, really interesting protagonist. And I think the writing style is perfectly suited to this story. It is reminiscent of Shakespeare and that sort of flowery style, but it's never oversaturated. It's still a very, very quick and easy read. And I just love this book so much. Even if you hate the play Romeo and Juliet, and I am not the biggest fan of that play, I think you would really, really enjoy this book. Question number 2 is The Grim Reaper, or the saddest character death. Now this one, all I'm gonna say is Bridge to Terabithia by Katherine Paterson. You know what I'm talking about. Question number 3 is Sims Getting Stuck, a character that just kept getting in the way. For this question, I'm going with Enzo from the Young Elites trilogy by Marie Lu. Now, I actually really enjoyed Enzo's character in the first book. I thought he was interesting and he was well-rounded and he was just really fascinating as a leader and a rebel. But I feel like as the series went on, his presence sort of became less necessary to the story. And I'm not just talking about the sort of love triangle that involves him, even though that was kind of frustrating. I just mean the fact that he existed and the fact that he was around Adelina and her group just sort of unnecessarily complicated the story, and it actually led to a lot of really bad decisions being made and just a lot of bad things happened because he was still around. Question number 4 is Simlish, a book with amazing writing. For this one, I'm going to say A Face Like Glass by Frances Hardinge. I mean, really, any of Frances Hardinge's books would certainly qualify for this question. Now, this is sort of a reverse Alice in Wonderland, almost. It's like you're following our character Neverfell, who lives in this mysterious underground world called Caverna. And the writing throughout this book is just so beautiful, but it's never overdone. And I really enjoy writing that is lovely, but it's not oversaturated. She's incredibly descriptive. She makes you picture what she's talking about in really creative ways without ever dragging down the pace of the story. And I love this book. There are so many incredible quotes that I could share from this one, but I'm just going to leave you with the tagline because I think it's a good sort of vague descriptor of what the story is about and the kind of atmosphere you get. Child, thief, madman, spy, which speaks the truth and which one lies? Question number 5 is Expansion Packs, a series where the books just kept getting better. Now this one is, I think, kind of a popular answer for this, but I really couldn't think of a better one at the time, and that is The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. The first book is, of course, Cinder. And I really enjoyed this first book, but in a similar way to many other people's experiences, I really felt that once we got into Scarlet, the second book, and especially with Cress, which is the third book, things just took off. And it's like if you were kind of iffy about this series just after reading Cinder, I think you should definitely push through into Scarlet and kind of decide if you want to continue from there. It gets exponentially better and it's so worth sticking it out if you're maybe not thrilled with the first book. Question number 6 is Sims Romance, the worst case of insta-love. And for this one, I'm going with Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. I know. Now let me just say I love this trilogy, But I chose this as my answer because even though I've read worst cases of insta-love, I feel like this is the one that personally disappointed me the most because I loved all the other aspects of this trilogy so much. Like, I loved the writing, I loved the plot, the world building, like the supporting characters. I loved so many aspects of this book. But the insta-love that's like the main relationship, I just could not get on board with. Like, I know that we kind of have it explained later, and it just wasn't enough for me. Like, I wasn't buying it. I personally could overlook the insta-love because I don't read this series for Kaoru and Akiba. I just don't. They're fine, but I like all the other aspects much better. Question number 7 is Cheats, a book that was entirely unrealistic. For this question, I'm going with The Juliet Club by Suzanne Harper. Now, this is a contemporary book that very loosely incorporates some aspects of Shakespeare. I read this a long time ago, and I still remember how irritated I was when I finished it. You follow a bunch of characters who are equally unmemorable, but the thing that ties them all together is they are all either living in or vacationing in Italy, and they're helping with the Letters to Juliet project. Like, if you've seen the movie Letters to Juliet, I really enjoy that one, and I feel like that does a much better job of making the story believable, because the main character in the movie does participate in the writing of letters, but she only does it once. And it's an older correspondent, it's an older story, so she's not immediately being asked to fix somebody's love life. And she's doing it under the supervision of professionals, of women who have been doing this for years and years and years, and they have received extensive training. Whereas in the book that I'm talking about, it's a bunch of teenagers, which teenagers are entirely capable of handling intense material like that. But these are really stupid teenagers. Like, they're just incredibly immature. I don't personally feel like they should be allowed to give personal or romantic advice to people. Question 8 is Needs Fulfillment, a character who made all the wrong decisions. My answer for this one is from the Skullduggery Pleasant series by Derek Landy, and that is the main character of that series, Stephanie. And I know that she goes by another name later, but I'm not going to get into that. So, Stephanie, I liked her fine in the first 2 or 3 books when she was younger, and I felt like she was a reasonably likable protagonist. Like, she was just snarky enough without being irritating, and she was pretty bright, and she responded in believable ways to these sort of magical things happening around her, and she was fine. I liked her. But as the series went on, I got more and more fed up with her as a character, because over and over she makes these really, really dumb decisions that she even knows at the time could cause problems later, but she makes them anyway because she is so confident about the fact that she knows better than everybody else, than these like wizards and magicians and people with powers who are hundreds of years older than her in some cases. Stephanie just thinks that she knows better than everyone, so she's gonna do this and screw what you guys think, everything's gonna be fine. And then she's surprised when it bites her in the ass and like everything goes wrong. And I'm getting upset even talking about it, even though I read these books a really long time ago. Oh my god, I just could not stand Stephanie after about book 3 or 4. Question 9 is Error Code 12, a series that started out great but went downhill from there. And that one goes to the Maximum Ride series by James Patterson. And I really loved the first 3 books. Like, looking back, I think the problems I had with the later books were probably still there, but the plot was interesting enough, and it was fast-paced enough, and the characters were engaging enough that it didn't really bother me. I remember just marathoning the first 3 books that were out at that time, like back to back to back, I think over a weekend or something, and I loved them. I could not get enough of these books. And then the 4th book came out. I think it was The Final Warning, and that's when everything just kind of disintegrated. Like, the first 3 books are about Max and her sort of band of misfit adopted siblings, and they've been experimented on, and these kids have wings, like giant bird wings, and the series, like the first 3 books sort of follow them as they figure out what the purpose was, like what they were being used for, and trying to get back at the people who did this to them, and like there's all these other plot things going on. But that's kind of the condensed version of what. And then in the 4th book, we're suddenly in Antarctica, and the entire plot is trying to like stop global warming, which is an admirable thing to do, but it was handled so badly. Like, there was absolutely no connection between the prior books and then this one. It was like a completely different person was writing it, which, if you've heard some of the news about James Patterson, is not out of the realm of possibility, but it was just so ham-fisted. Like, there was no subtlety about what they were doing or about the moral of the story. There was just no point to this book. It was sort of like a PSA against global warming, but it wasn't even a good one. Like, there was absolutely nothing this book executed well. And just from that book on, it was a disaster. I think I read the book after that one and then I stopped because I just couldn't do it anymore. It just got ridiculous. Like, the characters weren't even acting like themselves. The plot was just nonsensical. The Maximum Ride series just like dove off a cliff. It was awful. Question number 10 is The Sims Vortex, a book or series that completely engrossed you. For this question, my answer is the Stravaganza series by Mary Hoffman. Now, I picked up this first book from my local used bookstore, and it was kind of on a whim. I saw that it was set in like an alternate sort of fantasy Renaissance Italy, and I was like, that sounds really cool. And I bought it. It was a few dollars, and I just flew through this book. I loved the premise. I enjoyed most of the characters. I thought that the world building was really incredible and fascinating, and I just loved it so much. And then I think what happened was I looked at the library and they had the next couple of books, and I was like, oh great, perfect. So I marathoned those, and then I couldn't get the others. Our library didn't have them, so I went online and tried to find where I could buy these. And I ended up buying a couple of like used library copies, which I don't usually do because you never really know what condition they were going to be in. But I was so desperate to finish this series that I did it. And finally, the last question is number 11. Who do you tag? And I'm pretty much just going to tag anybody who sees this video and who plays Sims or has played Sims, and if you think this looks fun, then you should definitely do it. And I would definitely love to see more people do this tag. Alright, that's everything I have for this video. You guys should let me know down below if you play Sims, and if you do, are you in favor of the pre-created families that come with the game, or do you only play Sims that you create? I'm kind of curious about that because that's a pretty divisive issue, I think, in the Sims world, so I'd love to hear what you guys say. Alright guys, so thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you soon with another one, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!